I started photography for a few reasons, and I want to show you that it's possible and that you can do it even in the midst of an absolute shitstorm. I had been stuck at home in COVID. It was 2020 I think it was like March or April when all this COVID stuff started happening. And I was stuck at home. I enjoyed the first few weeks as everyone else did, just being off of work and enjoying being at home. But as the weather got nicer, I spent most of my time outside. So as May and June came around, I was going outside and I had gotten a phone. I think it was a new phone like the Christmas before that or something. And I was just like, oh, I'll play around with like the settings. So I was playing with like the portrait mode and like some panos and like some slow-mo videos. I was just having fun like in the backyard with that. So like I was taking photos of like the flowers. I vividly remember this one that I saw like on TikTok, and it was like a slow-mo if you hold your phone like upside down and you like brush your phone in slow-mo through the flowers, and I got like a bee and I was like, wow, this is so cool. So I just had begun taking photos on my phone, and like I didn't know like this is what I wanted to do or where I was going with it. I just completely wanted to take photos and keep myself busy. So then I started taking pictures of my dog, and then like of my boyfriend at the time and his parents or his mom and just taking photos of everything with my phone and just like playing around with it. So that was in about like like the May to like June. And then I had began to take a really big interest in taking photos. So like every time we went somewhere or his family would come over, I would just be there doing that. And like at this time I had made a big career shift. So I was actually a business owner prior to COVID. So I had been a dog groomer for 2 years. I owned a dog grooming business with my aunt, and it was super successful, but we had butted heads and it was just not what I wanted to do anymore. So I saw COVID as the opportunity to exit that business, and I was going to actually start my own. But then I don't really remember the big shift, but I had registered my new business. I had came up with a whole name. I was looking at different places. I was getting like everything set up for like a new dog grooming business just on my own instead of a partnership. But some point along that way, I had just stopped with it, just like completely stopped. And I think it was just like COVID, and I started taking photos. So once July came around, so my birthday is in July, my boyfriend at the time and his mom had been researching cameras, and they gifted me a camera with a I can't remember what the lens was, but it was a zoom lens. And they had gifted me the Nikon Z50 and then that zoom lens. And it had like a kit lens on it, and I was like completely shook. Go ahead. I had been taking photos, and they noticed that, and they noticed how much like I enjoyed doing it. So instantly I remember like that day taking it out and like using it, and then we were laying some patio stones, so we were taking them out of like the truck and putting them like just like on the ground. And I was watching my boyfriend at the time throw like these patio blocks and the dirt coming off of it, and I was so stunned at the shutter captured the fast gas movement. It was so clear and so crisp. I was like jaw dropping. It was like I had no idea how to use this thing yet. I was just putting it in automatic and seeing like what I could create, and then I would actually connect it to like my phone. So the camera would connect to my phone, and then I would download them onto here, and then I would edit them in Lightroom. So actually it was Lightroom. I was gonna say I edited it on Instagram, but it was Lightroom. And I had a photography page like prior to that. So I think I did. Oh my gosh, it's kind of a little bit of a blur now that it's like 4 years later, but almost five. I had started an Instagram photography underscore Zettel. So I like it was a no-brainer. I can completely just like love my last name and put photography with it. So I had posted like my iPhone photos like before that, and like I had like I tried to do the very aesthetic like feed, and like my style is completely changed now, but it was a style and I was consistent with it, and I was like playing around with it, and I bought like a bunch of these presets off of Etsy and just like played with them, and there was like a bunch of them, and I was like, I don't even know which one to use because I wanted like that warm aesthetic, but then I also love this one. It was called like Biscotti, and it was like pink tones, but it was like brighter, and I just also loved that one, but I really aimed for the warmness more. So I had bought these presets, I had edited them, I was starting to post them, and then once the camera came out, I was taking photos like of us like doing things and golfing and anything that we were doing still in the midst of like COVID. So that summer I had dedicated to taking photos and using this camera. So all of July was like personal stuff, so like of me, my family, my dogs, my pets, all of that stuff. And then August came around and I had made a little bit of a awareness on my photography page at that point on my Instagram. So I was reposting photos from like my photography onto like my main one. So I had like about like 2,000 followers like, for my main Instagram. That was like my personal one. And I would just like reshare that on my story. And like I would get like a lot of followers just from that. And people would be like, oh my God, she's doing photography. And at that time, it was not as popular as it is now. So like a lot of people are starting photography now. So it's more common to like see your friends like get into that. But it wasn't as common back in 2020 when COVID was happening. Nobody was starting to get into that. So like it was kind of like a rare find. And like then I became known as like, the photo person. So August came around and I had posted about doing free sessions for the entire month. I have no regrets doing that. I absolutely did like some of the best like sessions. I had so much fun. I was still so excited and so passionate. I was like, this is the coolest thing. I gotta do different like settings, and I gotta do different times of the day, different kinds of shoots, everything. I remember this one. She was my friend from high school, and she invited me to her barn, and the sun was like shining in, but like in the barn, like there's like little cracks, so like the sun would shine in, and you could see like the dust coming out. And she was doing like portraits, and I was like, oh my God, I still vividly remember like how good the shoot was. And we went into a hayfield. I loved that, or not a hayfield, sorry, a wheat field. I love that. We did some with the horses, and that was like still one of like my favorite moments. Like I really miss being able to go back to the beginning, and when people would invite you to cool locations. Now as a photographer, I'm like scouting all the locations, like just totally awesome, and I love having like control over that. But I also love being invited to hidden gems and personal property, because there's so much like beauty in being able to get photos done where no one else will be. So another one that was like such a cool idea, because everyone wasn't paying for this, so they got to be creative and they got to add like their own little spunk to it. I did my cousins a few times. So I remember doing her engagement photo show. She just got engaged to her boyfriend. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I would love to do that. And we went to her family farm, and we went in the backfield. And I remember this like tree like overhanging. It's still like pretty bright in the day. I don't think it was like golden hour. And I was still finding my editing style, but she still loves the photos like to this day. And so do I. I loved like just being able to like prepare for it and do like a couple shoot, because it was kind of rare to actually do like couple photos like in that month. And then I also did her photos again because she lived like so close to me, and she had bunnies. And I remember doing this one where we put the bunny in her back pocket, and it was the cutest thing ever. So I gotta be really creative in this free time of the August when I was offering free shoots, because people would exchange their time to get like free photos. And then I was still editing off of my phone, so I was still learning an editing style and how to like deliver them. So I would deliver them through like the shared albums in like iPhone. So if you know like photos, the shared albums, So I was sharing galleries like through that, and I would be like, here's your edits, like I hope you love them. So it's not something that I wanted to do like professionally. I didn't really think of it. I just began like shooting stuff because I wanted to use this camera and I was super excited for it. So all of August was my prime time, and that's when I, like, some people would throw me like a 20 or 40 and like just like be super appreciative of it. And I remember doing like a bunch of other ones in that time, and it was awesome. So as September rolled around, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to start charging for this because I'm getting inquiries. So I was getting DMs. So I didn't have like a professional email at the time or like anything like that. You would just DM through like my Instagram. So I was getting like a ton of DMs about like getting shoots done. So I was like, okay, like I can't do this for free forever if this is gonna how it's gonna be. So I started charging $40. Pretty cheap. So $40 for like a whole shoot, and that was like travel and everything included. I was driving like everywhere to these sessions because at the time I had lived in Elmwood and I didn't do a single shoot in Elmwood, and then I would drive everywhere. It's my dogs. So yeah, I would honestly just like drive to all of these shoots like that, or like 15 minutes away, or anywhere from like 15 to an hour away, and it was still $40. Like I didn't charge travel, it was just $40. And at that time, I think COVID was kind of like lifting too. So I was actually like trying to buy a house at the same time. So I was like really in between jobs after quitting my dog grooming business. So I was very unsure what I wanted to do. So I just applied to different places that hopefully had a permanent job. So I had worked at Edgewell for a little bit. And it was like a factory company. The hours were like 7 and I would get off at 3. So I really liked getting off at 3 and I could still like do my thing. But it was a temporary position and I did like working there. It was just every time I would try and get like pre-approved, they would say I can't because it was a temporary position, not a permanent one. So I had to hunt down for a permanent position. So I had a pretty good interview at Walmart. I really didn't want to, but I also really wanted a house. So I had that interview, but then I had a call from a construction company and I was like mind blown because I feel like not a lot of girls get the opportunity to go into the construction business. So I was like, yes, this is so sweet. I would love to do that. So then I got hired at a construction company, and that was really cool because I like doing like more physical stuff and being able to like, yeah, it was just all around a great job. So I had worked there for the rest of like 2020. Maybe it was 2021. No, I think I started around like September or August, September-ish, 2020. And then I had rode that out until I want to say like 2021, the beginning of 2021. So it was short-lived because the market was absolutely crazy for housing, and like that's the main reason I wanted this job is to buy a house. So I had been looking that whole time. It was so hard. I was crushed, but I honestly took a leap and I said fuck it. I said I want to do photography. I was so busy. I was working like, so the construction, you would start at like 7 a.m. and then you wouldn't get done till 5 p.m. sometimes later. So it was cutting into the daytime too. So I would never know when I would be back to the shop. So I would book all of these sessions. I would be like, hey, like, yeah, we can do it right after because the sun would go down earlier. So like in the winter time, it goes down like faster. So I would be doing my full-time job, and then right after like I would get back, I would literally show up in like my construction clothes and my work boots and stuff to the shoot because I would have my camera in my like car waiting, and then I would literally show up to the shoot, do the shoot until it was like dark out, and then do it all over again the next day. I would do that like 5 times a week, and then the weekend came around and I would book my entire weekends. Like I didn't have a day off. I was booking like 5 shoots a day on the weekends and like driving everywhere. So it wasn't in one spot. So I'd be like in Hanover and then Walker and then all over the place. So it would be like a little bit crazy. So I was like, At this point, I was still charging, I think, like $40. I eventually bumped it up, I think, maybe in the new year. So for that whole time, I only charged like $40 for like just like normal sessions. And then I think I ended up charging $90 for like bigger sessions, or $100. And then once the new year rolled around, I started charging $140 for like extended family, and then $80 for regular sessions. So like I was keeping busy, and I was like all cash at this point because I wasn't planning to be like a legitimate business, and I definitely didn't make over like 30 grand in those from August to the end of the year. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, hey, this is like taking up so much of my time, because I would actually get home after that. So I would like work from like 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then from 5 p.m. to like 7 p.m. I would do shoots, and then I would get home at like 7:30, 8 p.m. and then I would go on my laptop. So I did invest in a laptop at this time. I still had the same camera, but I invested in a laptop, and I learned how to actually edit on there and figure out how to like try and edit from there. And I would still use the that's the only thing I did was upgrade my editing from, because my phone storage got full. I upgraded from editing on my phone to a laptop, but I still send them through like the shared photos and like all of that. And it was actually kind of a hectic trying to get this laptop. So I went to like a local store, and I was like, hey, like I need this, like can I order it? So yep, whatever, it comes in. And then I started using it, and like I had never owned a MacBook before, so I had no idea what this was supposed to look like. So I would like look into the keys, and then like I posted it on my photography story, and I was like, does anyone else's MacBook look like this? And they're like, no, like, that's not the right one, that's a French one. And I was like, because it had all of these like accent keys and stuff. I was like, what? I never ordered this. This was like crazy to me. So I went back to the store, and I was like, hey, like you guys gave me like a French one. I need an English one. I don't understand French, and I want to learn like on a different one. So then I remember this is when I was like super busy. I was just getting in the flow of it, because it was like 2 weeks before I like figured out it was a French one. So I had like a system down, I had my MacBook set up, and they said that I had to give it back until the new one came. And I said, well, I can't do that. Like I have shoots for these 2-3 weeks, like almost took a month for this laptop to come in. I was like, I can't do that. Like you order it in so that then when it's in, I can quickly switch it over. So then like I'm not out a computer for like 3 weeks. And they said they couldn't do that. And I was like, okay. So I found a solution. I actually went straight to Amazon, and I found a Lightroom keyboard cover. So I was looking for a keyboard cover that would gonna be English, but I actually ended up finding one that had like shortcuts for Lightroom, and it kind of like didn't fit like the perfect fit, but I still use it to this day, and it's almost 5 years later. So I still use that same like keyboard cover, and it's like a game changer. I am nasally. Oh, I need some water. So I had been definitely learning a lot about Lightroom at this time and using those keyboard shortcuts, and I had dealt with this French MacBook for so long. I just dealt with it. So a little bit of a mess up, definitely like something that I don't think could have been prevented. It just kind of happened. So that was definitely a crazy time when I was upgrading that. And then another big thing in my photography was when I got a 35mm lens, the one that I'm actually shooting on right now. So like 4 years ago, I got this lens, and I still use it as my primary. So I remember like just like looking up lenses. I think this one at the time was like $800 or something like that. And like I had been working like that full-time construction job, and I had been getting like all this like side money from like doing photography. So I didn't really know what I was buying though. I kind of tried to research, but I still was at the point of photography where I still didn't understand all of the specs about everything. So I had learned how to use manual mode. I like adjusted my settings and things like that, but I didn't really know like what gear to buy or like what I was buying. But I upgraded from like the kit lens, because I didn't really use the zoom lens too much, just because I didn't like the zoom effect. Like I liked being able to be close to like clients and stuff. So I was using the kit lens. I was like 24 to 65 or something. I don't know. It was like a very short lens. But I had been using the kit lens for like the Nikon Z50, and then I was like, ugh, it just wasn't working. I was just like struggling with like the ISO too, like being at nighttime, and like the aperture would go as low as like 3.5. I was like, I need to like figure out something. So I was looking up different stuff, and I found like the 35 millimeter 1.8. So it went down to 1.8 aperture, and I was like, okay, like I'll just order this one. Like it's only $800 at the time, wasn't like bad because like I was getting like super consistent income, and I was like ready to make an investment on my photography with all the return I was getting. So I was like, I will buy this and just pray and hope that I'm gonna like it. So then within a week it came in, and I was so excited. I put it on my body, and then I was like, jaw dropped. I was like, oh my god, this is the best. And then again, I was more passionate about like doing photography again, because like I wasn't struggling as much, and I was loving like the outcome of what like this lens was looking like. So I had started using this lens all of the time. I put the other two lenses like away, and I never touched them after that. I was using the 35 literally for like the rest of my career at this point. This was the best investment that I got re-inspired to do it. So instead of like quitting and being like, like these photos aren't turning out, I made another investment. So all that money that I was getting in, I reinvested it into my business, and I reinvested it into like softwares and equipment and gear. So like I slowly built that up. So getting a laptop and a new lens were the two biggest things that really encouraged me in the beginning, and it just made me feel more passionate and loving about what I'm doing. So instead of it seeing it as just a job, I honestly saw it as like a creative outlet. And I'm a person that loves to learn, so I love to be able to constantly learn something. I don't want to be someone that just like can max out like what I have to learn, and then I'm stuck at that like max out. I love to just like keep learning. So that's why I loved being like a business owner. I love being able to like expand in different ways, or like learn how to, or like test it out. I'm like an entrepreneur. I love to do things. So anyways, back to what we were talking about. I was super busy in January, so the following year, so 2021, I still had my full-time job. I was doing shoots right after, a bunch of shoots on the weekend, and then I would edit until like 1, 2 a.m., sometimes even 5 a.m. Especially on weekends, I would like edit all night and try and get caught up and send all of these things. And like at that point, like, I didn't really know like how to call or anything, so I was in the Photos app, and I would go through and I like would favorite them. So like I wouldn't even have like a hard drive at this point. I would just do that and then import them to Lightroom, export them back to my Photos app. But at some point, like my storage got full on my laptop too, so I was like, okay, I need to like figure something out. So then I invested in a hard drive. So I came across all of these roadblocks and then figured them out. But anyways, sorry, keep getting off track, but I was editing super late, and then I would show up to my full-time job with like 4 hours of sleep, and that was not good. And then I was like also trying to like wake up early to like go hit the gym, and like at that point in my life I was only 20 years old, so I was really in a weird spot as to what I wanted, in a weird transition from like quitting my other business to wanting to be like better, like healthier, and like with this new business and trying to buy a house. It was just like a weird time, and especially with COVID, it had just like changed like so much about what you could do. So then I had did that, and then I just like said screw it, and I quit. So I moved a little bit away. So we found this place to like rent, and it was like 40 minutes from my job, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll drive it. After like 2 weeks of driving it, I was like, you know what, I don't like doing this drive every day, and I don't have time to like do this. Like, so at some point, February, March-ish, I said I'm gonna quit the construction job and I'm gonna do photography full time, because I was making like a pretty good decent amount of money. So I was very comfortable with where like I was at, and I had like a good savings because we were saving for a house. So we had rented a spot, so we didn't put this like down payment on or anything. So we did have like a emergency kind of like fund that we had. So I knew like I would be okay if like the photography end wasn't working out, and I knew like I could apply for different jobs, and I knew these places probably would hire me again. So I quit being a construction worker, and I said yes to being a full-time photographer. And this was less than a year is when I went full-time. It was absolutely crazy to me that I had did this so fast, and I had built this reputation for myself very fast, and I was still getting consistent increase without really doing any marketing. I had just begun like posting all of my like sessions, not even like the cute like scroll posts or anything, like just like little photos. And like I was so cheap at the time, it was just like crazy overwhelming. I was saying yes to everything, and like it was just like a crazy like business at this time. I was just getting into like learning how to like share my stories and stuff. Like that was like outside the comfort zone for me, because I wasn't comfortable really with like putting my face like on camera, but I eventually learned to love it. And I was like, nobody cares. Like I would post something, and like everyone would reply with positivity to whatever text was on there or whatever I was talking about. Very rarely had I, in the past 5 years of posting, has somebody came back with a negative comment. I've maybe had 3 people say something that wasn't positive about my stories. And that it's just like crazy that like there's so much like fear around like, posting. But I'm like, if they're following you because they like you, not because they dislike you. So the people that see your stories are going to be the people that are following you and going to embrace your journey and gonna love seeing your face, and they're gonna love seeing what you're doing. So I was just like super overwhelmed with like trying to do that, and then I eventually ended up just like saying fuck it and always like posting. But anyway, so after quitting my job, it was 2021 of like the spring, and then we went into lockdown. This was a hard time for me because I had just transitioned into being a full-time photographer, having payments, a rent payment. I've never had a rent payment. So we like moved out, we had that, and then I actually like me and my boyfriend had like broken up. It was another crazy time for me, and I was just like, and I just got a puppy. So there was like so much that had went on in this like time, and I didn't let it overwhelm me too much. I had so much friends and so much like community, and I had like the good finances to like fall back on. But we did go into lockdown. I ended up getting COVID, so I was not allowed to like leave the house for like 2 weeks or something. And we lived in a farmhouse, so that was nice that we actually still got to like be outside. And like with my puppy, I was like, I saw this as an opportunity just to like embrace the outdoors with my dog and be like alone, and like just like really embrace like spending time with myself and like working on my skills. And at this point I had like a little bit better of a workflow down, so I had started using Shootproof to actually like send my galleries instead of like the shared album. So this is all like less than a year. Now that I say it out loud, it's crazy how fast like everything happened. I need a coffee. Where were we? Okay, so yeah, my dogs, what are you doing? They're scheming up something. So it was like a lot. It was a big transition in my life. There was a lot going on. And then COVID really said, you can't work anymore. And that was like my main source of income. So that's when like the CERB came out. So I took advantage of that for like that 2 weeks, because I wasn't allowed to bring any income in from having like COVID. Or maybe it was like, yeah. Oh, the CERB was like the before that. So I didn't even have like any income for like 2 weeks, because I was just like sick, locked down, not allowed to leave my house, not allowed to see anybody or do anything. So I was just dipping into my emergency funds at that point, but I wasn't going anywhere, so I wasn't really spending money. So I guess I was kind of just like evening out at that point. I obviously like needed groceries and stuff, so just like the necessities is what I had to dip into my emergency fund for. And then COVID lifted it where you could like see people outside but not inside. So I saw like this as an opportunity to like use the place I was living to take photos. So I had hosted this week-long promotion of portraits for $50 because I was so into portraits. I was like, I love like taking photos of just like solo people and like posing them. I loved it. I was just like, I was so creative in that sense. So I had posted this promo for like all the entire week, like that was ready to get back to work and outside. So I had took this promo for like $50 a session, and I did some crazy editing on it. Like, it was definitely not the greatest return on investment, but it was like money coming in, it was flowing, and it was what I wanted to do. It was more just to like let my creative side out because I hadn't been shooting for like 2 weeks. So I had done that, and then there was this other opportunity. So this was like crazy. So it was maybe 2021. Yeah, it was February 2021 is when I got my first wedding. So this was still like mid-COVID. Every event had to be canceled, but it was my neighbors. They literally right beside me. Their photographer had canceled because they were scheduled to get married, but they had like a super small thing. It was like under 10 people. They kind of like kept it a little bit of a secret, but they asked me if I could do photo. I was like, yeah, like I will do that. I've never done one before though. I like expressed it. I'm like, I've never done this before. And they said, it's fine. It's super casual. They just want some photos. But then they had also asked me to do video. I was like, yeah, for sure. I got this like gimbal. Another investment. That was one that I maybe regret because I only used it like ever twice in the past like 4 years, and because I just never wanted to get into video. So I had done my first wedding, and I did it for like, it was I think it was a 8-hour day or so, maybe. I can't quite remember how many hours it was, but I brought my best friend along with me just to like help be a second hand, be a little bit of a support system. And that whole time, like from like the beginning till then, I would bring along friends if I was like felt uncomfortable at the shoot, because they would be like a good support system. So she came along to the wedding with me, and I only had one camera still at this time. So my 35 on my Nikon Z50, and I was using the gimbal and taking photos at the same time with one camera. Can you imagine how hectic that would be? I can't believe like I got through that, and how good like the photos like turned out in like the video. I was kind of like in shock. So I had charged like maybe $600. So like it was a great opportunity. I loved being able just to like have that opportunity and like see everything. And kind of like how it works, and just getting like my foot into like the wedding industry. I don't think I ended up ever sharing like any of the photos because they kind of wanted to keep it like more low key. So it was more of like the experience that I got to like get from it, which was very, and I'm so grateful for them. So, but I ended up going to edit the video, and again, at this time, I still didn't really know like all the specs for like camera gear and like laptop gear. So my MacBook at the time was only 8 gigabytes of like RAM or running memory. So I tried to edit the photos, and then I downloaded like Adobe Premiere Pro and tried to bring the video into it. And I literally like blew up. I was like, this is not my thing. I do not want to video edit. Like it was so slow, but I didn't know like why it was slow. I just thought it was like the program. Like at this time, like I was still like learning so much. So I had just like messaged somebody that I knew like does kind of like videography. Like I think he did like a few weddings, and he was in my area, and I asked him if I could pay him to like edit this video because I had no idea what I was doing. So he ended up getting it back, but it was like a year later. So literally on their anniversary, they got their wedding video, which is kind of like cool. But at the same time, I was like it was just like a whole crazy process. So super grateful for like that opportunity, and I loved shooting the footage. Shooting the video footage was super fun. Just editing it was not my thing. So that was like my first wedding opportunity, and then my second wedding opportunity came to my cousin. So that was like in May, I believe. February, March, April, May. I think it was May, because I remember like it was still like brownie, like like kind of like, maybe it was, yeah. Pretty sure their anniversary is in May. So I had that wedding as my second one, but they had like booked that beforehand. So like that was also a cool opportunity because that was my first like ever actual wedding where there's like a bunch of guests and stuff. So I was there for like some of the getting ready parts and some family photos, and then they had a church wedding, so like a church ceremony. And then I literally didn't even pick out a location to like go take photos with them and their wedding party and like stuff until the day of, and I was like, yeah, we could go here because it had been raining, and like I was just like a mess. I was like, I didn't know what, like I wish I was more organized, but like the day still turned out so beautifully. It was so fun, and like we had some fire trucks go by and they like stopped and like took some pictures with us. It was such a cool experience. With this experience hi Duke, I had also learned what banding was. So in the church ceremony, I had figured out what banding was because when I looked at my photos in post-processing on my laptop, there was a bunch of these black lines, and I had no idea what it was called. I had no idea what caused it. All I knew was I needed to edit this or it looks like they're literally in a jail cell. So that took me forever to edit. So all of these, my first year of weddings and sessions, I was basically just learning and getting experience. It's not like I was charging a crazy amount of money. I wasn't looking to like make like $1,000 a year or $100,000 a year yet. I was just learning like everything that I could and soaking up all of it and like really expressing that I'm like still new and that I need to like learn. So I loved being able to take these opportunities to learn, and everyone that like took a chance on me, like wedding photos are something that you're going to cherish forever. So the fact that I got to like do that for people was absolutely insane to me. So I really took a leap in the first year just to go full time, and it was the best decision of my life. So in that first year, I had learned so much. So I learned the lens is more important than the body. So upgrading your lens. I learned a bunch about my MacBook and running memory. I had learned about weddings and what to do. I had learned what to do in inside situations to avoid banding. I had learned editing. I had learned workflow and how to send like photos. I had learned a lot in this time. In that summer of 2021, because I was self-employed, I actually took a month off. All of July. I took all of July off to actually go with my friends to British Columbia. So we did a month-long road trip out there, me and my two girl best friends, and we absolutely loved it. I went out there and I was like, I'm moving here. So I literally said that the entire trip. I got back home, I arranged everything in order, and I had left and moved out west November 1st. So I took this boy with me. I had met this boy and we're actually still dating 3 years later. But I was like, yeah, like I'm leaving. We were kind of like talking and kind of hanging out, and he said he would come with me. So I stayed back an extra month to like help him like figure his stuff out, and then we moved out there with no plan. We had the dog, we had my car, we just moved out there. We're like, we'll figure it out, we're gonna find a place. And like we just like went out there, and then we got like seasonal jobs. So my photography was not that booming yet, so I had weddings lined up for 2022 summer, so I knew I had the entire winter and some of the spring to actually be able to go out there and like live my best life. So we had settled down in Fernie, British Columbia, and got seasonal jobs there so that when spring times rolled around that we could like head back home, because I knew that I had to come back home. So we came back home, but we did have to get seasonal jobs. So I guess I hadn't been full-time in photography for that whole time. It was that winter of 2021, 2022 that we had got seasonal jobs, but that was so cool. And I honestly barely picked up my camera. I picked it up for one session that I said for free, and we met the coolest friends out there, Jane and Logan. Still love you guys. And I guess I took it out a few times when we went out so we made some friends out there and we go on adventures, and I take some photos of the two of them. But it was more just like to have for myself. It wasn't to like do anything crazy. I was more enjoying the moment and enjoying living like somewhere else, and it was the best time. Like, I struggled a little bit with like making more friends, and like I was missing like my best friends and stuff, but it was the best time. I honestly saw so much of like the world, not the whole world, but I saw so much. I got to make so many memories with my dog and take him on so many hikes, and he got to live it like just his best life, and we just loved it. We had like a routine down. We drove all the way out there. We lived there for like 5 or 6 months and then moved back home in Ontario. So that was pretty crazy. That was a wild time. So I came back and I jumped right back into photography, and I was as busy as ever. So people were ready, lined up for when I was back home. I had built the reputation back home for myself, and everybody loved booking with me. So ever since then, I have been doing photography full time. I've been learning. I'm still learning, especially with this new YouTube journey. I have been learning a lot of video editing, which I thought I hated, but now that I have 32 gigabytes of RAM on my laptop, video editing isn't that bad. So I guess that's a little bit of my journey. I'm still with the boy that I ran away with, so I'm super happy for that. So we've been together for over 3 years and loving life every second of it. We have another dog now, so when we got back from British Columbia, we did get another puppy, so we have 2 wild boys. I can't imagine my life being anything else right now. My life is pretty good. I can't complain. I do love my job, and I hope that this inspires somebody to take the leap to do their passion and just get into it because you love it. Don't get into it expecting money. That is one key takeaway that I love to express, because not everything is about money. Not everything. It's about fulfilling your soul and who you want to be and where you want to see yourself in a few years. And this fires my passion. This fires my creativity, and I get to like grow and learn, and I love every second of it. And if I was just looking for money in the beginning, I don't think I would have ever done this or pursued it. So I am super glad that I was able to work so hard to get here, and I did work so hard. I learned. I spent all my extra time learning on YouTube and trying to find different things to grow my business, and I worked. So I did hit a few burnouts, and that's when I realized I needed to quit my full-time job and do this full-time so that I could actually give it my 100% and not be burnt out while doing it. So if you need a sign, let this be it. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any questions about any of that timeline, because I'm kind of crazy when it comes to storytelling and I'm all over the map, let me know in the comments and I can definitely touch base on those questions for you.